are sailing into the historic old harbor of Liverpool, a vital gateway to Great Britain and one of the world's most important ports of call, with over 30 miles of quayage, embracing a colossal system of shipping, which begins here and extends itself to the most distant reaches of international trade. Liverpool was originally a fishing village with its history dating back to 1207, when King John made it a borough to serve as a point of departure for Ireland. A lucrative slave trade started in 1709. Ships sailed first to Africa, where they shipped the slaves, then to the West Indies, where the slaves were sold, and the proceeds brought home in cargoes of sugar and rum. This trade continued until its abolition in 1807. Another branch of maritime enterprise which attracted the attention of the merchants of Liverpool was privateering, which during the latter half of the 18th century was a profitable investment. Some of the early expeditions proved so successful that almost the whole community rushed into privateering, with results of a very checkered character. Although the city itself was heavily bombed during the recent war, comparatively little damage was done to the all-important docks. Motoring from Liverpool to Stratford-on-Avon, we passed through many places of interest, including the old town of Chester, with its unique main street, one of the oldest public thoroughfares in the British Isles, along which the Roman invaders drove their chariots almost 2,000 years ago. On either side of this quaint street are the famous rows, which consist of arcades permitting continuous undercover passage from store to store, where one may purchase most of his household requirements. A convenient arrangement, especially on a stormy day. Again, en route to Stratford-on-Avon, we passed through the ancient city of Coventry, which probably received the worst blitzing of any place in the British Isles during the recent war. As a matter of fact, the material destruction was so bad and the human suffering so horrible that the enemy coined the word Coventrate, which was used by them thereafter whenever they gave orders to bomb a place completely. The history of this old city is replete with stirring incidents, one of the best known of which is the story of Lady Godiva, immortalized in the poem by Tennyson. For 3 long months, the enemy bombed the city of Coventry, which has been recognized as the headquarters for the English motor car and cycle industries since 1870. But despite the complete blitzing of over 50% of its buildings and machinery, the Daimler Works, with the help of the courageous people of Coventry, carried on, becoming a symbol of British industry that succeeded in achieving its full quota of wartime production. Here is a horrible example of how completely one of the Daimler factories was demolished by enemy bombs. It is difficult for us who have never experienced a wartime blitz to understand the terrible forces of destruction that are let loose, tossing ton-weight objects about like feathers. For example, this huge motor fan, weighing over 1,000 pounds, was blown from a window 100 yards away, and it has been quietly turning in the breeze ever since. After witnessing only a minute portion of the awful results of modern warfare, as it has developed to date, we shudder at the very thought of another war. Verily, it would most certainly be the last one, for wars are fought by men, and if we can believe what we read about the potentialities of atomic destruction, it would mean the end of mankind on this earth. Whether we choose to destroy one another or endeavor to rebuild our world into something better is the momentous issue before us. And we feel that if it were left to the war-shocked people of Coventry to decide this diabolical question, never again would the horrors of war blacken the face of our good earth. In the outskirts of Coventry, we pass a unique monument, which is famous not for beauty of design, but for the fact that it has been erected here in the very center of the British Isles in honor of the cyclists of the world. Another famous monument along our route is the one at Banbury, which figures in the English nursery rhyme, "Ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross to see a fine lady upon a white horse. Rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. She shall have music wherever she goes." The original cross, which once stood here, was destroyed during the 17th century by zealous Puritans, but was replaced by this one in 1858. A few miles from here is the historic town of Warwick, with its magnificent castle, aptly described by Sir Walter Scott as the fairest monument of ancient and chivalrous splendor, which yet remains uninjured by time. The embattled walls and towers are noble examples of 14th century fortification. And now we've arrived at our destination, the town of Stratford-on-Avon, birthplace of England's most famous poet and dramatist, William Shakespeare. Although Stratford-on-Avon owes its chief interest to the reflected glory of its celebrated son, it was a place of some prominence long before the birth of Shakespeare. And among its ancient landmarks is this so-called Harvard House, which was the home of the mother of John Harvard, benefactor of Harvard University. Wherever we go in Stratford, there is a monument or a landmark to remind us of the Bard of Avon. And the greatest living tribute to his memory is the Shakespeare Memorial Theater, wherein his plays are reenacted from year to year. The birthplace of William Shakespeare is visited annually by thousands of visitors from all parts of the world. And it is now used as a museum, housing one of the greatest collections of Shakespearean items. It was here that Shakespeare spent his boyhood years, until his father lost most of his worldly goods and was obliged to apprentice his brilliant son to a local trade. Not far from here stands the thatched roof cottage wherein young Will Shakespeare courted Anne Hathaway, the girl that he married in his 18th year. It was an unfortunate marriage, but the world remembers William Shakespeare, not by how he lived, so much as by what he created and handed down to posterity. And this is the thought that we take with us as we say farewell to the land of Shakespeare.